welcome back to VBUZZ. You are still with us, Roshan, and myself, Juanita, and we are still with our first guest talking about his Viva Starfish project. Now, Jarrison, can you tell us a little bit about, the ripple effect? What is the ripple effect?
Okay, the ripple effect. When we first started out, now this is something that we initiated about a year. Yeah. So back a year back, we initially wanted to sell water. Profits go towards educating underprivileged children. Okay. Prior to this, prior to this, I was actually in oil and gas. We left our 9-to-5 circular jobs because it wouldn't have given us the time to do something like this. So when I left oil and gas, I was an accountant back then. The only way to achieve this was actually to start a company of my own, but it was mainly focused on providing services to the oil and gas industry. So from an accountant, I actually wanted to become a driller. If you watch the movie Armageddon, I wanted to be like Bruce Willis. I wanted to be a driller. So the only way to be a driller was you got to be a painter offshore. So I went offshore, became a painter, and next moment, I worked my way up, and I was assistant driller when I lost a friend in an incident. So that's how I went into safety. So from safety, we created a system. When we created a system that could predict accidents, it was the start of my company, which was actually providing an IT-based solution, IT tech system that could predict accidents through integration of apps and safety observation cards. Now, that company, CSR, was always giving back to society, educating trouble youths, and putting them offshore. I trained trouble youths and even anyone who wanted that opening in life to be in oil and gas and to go offshore. So I was doing that for free. I wouldn't even call it CSR because it was something that was part of operations. So we had a lot of safety officers with us, and if someone wanted to care for someone else, if they are in the safety line, when a disaster struck, they would give me a call and say, Jerry, are you organizing a team? So we were there during the tsunami, we were there during the floods, the storm, because that's how I evaluate who would be a good safety officer, because they actually train on the system that we have created. And when you have love for mankind, that's when you will become that over-the-edge safety officer. So one of the things that happened in my life was J.T. Fox, who was a business coach, heard about what I was planning to do about a year back. And he said, come to my session and present it. And he dissects your model. And when he dissects my model, he realized that I'm depleting my profits because to fulfill a passion of mine. So he said, create something that is self-sustaining. And why water? It's because 1.4 million Malaysians drink bottled water a day. That's a day, right? So even if we got like 10% of the market, we are able to educate close to 50 children a day. So if I even got like 1% or even 0.01, I'm able to educate at least 2 children a day. That's fantastic. So, and the other thing about water is the taste doesn't go far from coffee and Milo because you might have certain preference for others.
But Jerry, the thing is, right now it's working out. Right now it is a fantastic project. Right now you're helping so many kids and adults, like as you were mentioning. But for you and your wife Edna to make a decision to leave your full-time jobs and venture into something which is a bit unknown, because social work at times is not the best way to make money or sustain yourself or live your dream or live your passion in terms of buying whatever you want. What was that decision like when you made? Do you remember that moment in time when you sat down with your wife and you all both decided to move in this direction?
The moment came where we decided. We actually hit a few projects that made us a bit comfortable in life. And then we said that if we don't start now, we will never. And it was the best time. So it happened about a year back where we decided, let's stop and let's just focus on this. Let that go on. It still happens. We get a right project manager to run the whole business, but let's start on this. And it happened a year back where we decided it's time because now we can get everyone to help children and the special crowd. So it happened about last year.
Wow. Can you tell us about your first project? Did it happen last year, your
Our first project was actually 31 children in SRJK Klang, a Simpang Lima school in Klang. So they have identified a group of children who come from problematic families. And what has happened is, after end of the year, they went to standard 2. End of the year, they went to standard 3. Pass or fail, they kept on going up. And now they are standard 5 and 6. and they can't even read. So what's going to happen is by Form 2, statistics have proven this, that by Form 2, they won't be interested to study because they're so lost out, they will join bad company, they will pick up bad habits and won't be interested to study at all.
Yeah.
So our focus was, let's give them the basic education to be able to read and write, because now it's going to be a challenge for them to be the doctors and lawyers in society.
Yeah.
But what we can do is, they might be a mechanic and one day he might just have to write a quotation or for spare parts and stuff. So at least he knows how to read and write. That will enable him to gain access to knowledge, and knowledge to fulfill his passion, probably art, probably even to read his own paycheck.
Yeah. Jerry, you mentioned the word passion, and I can see a lot of passion coming from you. That was your first project, you said, that started all these things. But in terms of right now, in your current projects, what are you doing right now?
Currently, we have quite a few projects because after the coverage, a lot of companies have decided to even absorb some of the special crowd, the rehab boys. So the current projects is, we have become this unofficial recruitment agency for the homeless. And it happened because we decided to take some of the guys from the streets, clean them up and give them a job. And they have turned out to be excellent. I did mention that one of the key areas of our focus is to restore dignity. Because if you don't restore dignity, you're going to just constantly keep them in that cycle of poverty.
Yeah.
So we even met a bank exec who was on the streets for 1 year, sleeping under bridges. And luckily we identified him, but he didn't have any documents. We took him in and he's been excellent with us. He not only runs the logistics side, he's doing administration. So according to the skill, we promote them within. So that was one of the projects, is actually finding job placement, because a lot of companies have asked. And this came along the way. Now when it comes to the ripple effect, educating children is our primary cause because it's on our bottles. 10% of our profits go towards educating underprivileged children. Right. Employment, the second one would be, we employ a special crowd. The graduates at stage 5. So at stage 5, they are still with the center and they have not gone out yet. So at least they have a job, because prior to this, about 80% was a relapse happened. 80%. And one of the main causes was, back then, when I was involved in sports, integration into society to sports was fantastic, but they still need jobs. Only when they have jobs, they restore their self-esteem.
Yeah.
So now, before they go out, they already have a job with us. And what's going to happen is, when they go out, they can choose to remain with us, or if they can find something that is better, fantastic, but at least you have something with us. So that's the second ripple effect. Now, the other thing is this. We have a factory in Batu Caves that produces the water. So by the time we actually deliver to PJ and the next delivery is in Klang, it runs out, right? And the truck has to go all the way back to Batu Caves. So what we have done is, we have identified a poor family or single mothers, and surprisingly they have an accommodation, and we use them as a store, so now we can do delivery in that area.
Right, there's so many aspects to Viva Starfish project, but how would you measure the tangible measure of success? How would you measure success then with the project?
We try, because that's one of the key questions a lot of corporations do ask us. How do you measure success? For us, we have this rule, and you cannot go wrong with this rule, is, for us, success is not aspiring to be better than someone else, but it's to be better than who you used to be. Now, some of the children, they were getting D's, and now they got a C minus. That is success to us. They were on the streets. Now they are on this side of the table, giving out food to their friends, and they are the ones recruiting them. And they look, we're telling, look, why don't you come and join us? We'll get a job. So
Is that what motivates you now?
That's what motivates us, is being better than what I used to be yesterday. And for my organization, just doing one thing that we have not done to be better today. So that is our measure of success, and that's where we see, you never get disappointed with that. One of the guys working with us managed to repair a truck, bargained for a discount, which I didn't know of, sold the parts for scrap metal, came back and gave me, I managed to get you this.
Wow.
And this is extra money. That is success, how else can you measure success?
So you've got, people giving back to their own community, but how do we encourage more Malaysians to lend a helping hand to give to the less fortunate?
This is important, because one of it is always an experience. So we do this walkabout. Okay, we call it the walkabout because what happens is, we have friends who lost their jobs because of the economy and stuff. And they tell, Jerry, you got to help me, you got to get me a job. Because I used to place them offshore, right?
Yeah.
So I said, you know what, before you come, why don't you just come and join me for these walks? And when they do that walk, it's a life-changing walk. Why? Because it's not depressing in any way. Why? Because you'll see so much of Malaysians. This is where you see the best of Malaysians, okay? They're out on the streets feeding and giving food to the homeless. So if a homeless is taken care by Malaysians, your life is not so bad after all. Because if you end up on the streets, you will be cared for, you will be loved for. And that causes a change. Now, we have got some who followed us and eventually, they were hooked and they decided to come and continuously help us out. So yes, we have an app company. So now we're going to make it into an app, because what happens with the food distribution at times is a lot of food goes to one area but doesn't reach the others. Yeah. So we are the company that actually creates apps and solutions. So we will come up with the ways of the homeless so that you know exactly who had delivered a lot of food in one area and the other area didn't come. But when we go there, it's mainly to recruit. So we are on the streets. Yes, there is a philosophy of, teach a person how to fish. Right. That's what we do. But I never realized the initial part, which was so important, that is, if a person is hungry, no matter how much you try to teach him how to fish, he's not going to focus.
Right, that's amazing.
So that's why it's important for us to first, the immediate need, hunger, and then start recruiting them and use our success stories to recruit them.
Jerry, your story is an absolute success. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very
and it's
much,
been an
Jerry.
absolute pleasure, my friend. Keep doing the good work you're doing.
Thank
you and your wife,
so
Edna.
much.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. Thanks.
That is fascinating, isn't it? Just two people can make so much of a difference.
Yes, it is very, very much so. But now, moving on to our next guest. Imagine, if you will, that you're getting ready to cook dinner for your family. You wander outside, you pluck a few choices of veggies and fresh herbs, and then you're left with just one more important decision. Should you catch a tilapia to steam with a blanket of minced ginger, or is it better to fish out a plump grass carp to deep fry and top with a sambal sauce?
Yummy.
Now, you might think this is a scenario that might only work if you have a sprawling farm on the outskirts of the city, but the good folks from Pop Tani are here to show us that it's quite possible to live this way in Montiara, Hartamas, and Bangsa as well. Take a look at this video to see what we mean.
Hello there! Do you want to be a cool hip farmer just like me, but the city life is getting in the way? Have no fear, the Pop is here. Auga! Pop Tani proudly presents the Pop Tani Home Aquaponics Set. Within your box you shall find an aquarium bowl, a grow bed, a water pump, a pipe, and a mini hose. Optional items you can order are planting seeds, some jiffies, and a good old bag of pebbles. Putting your set together is very easy. First, plug in the tip of the mini hose into the pipe. Then insert the pipe into the bottom of the grow bed. Make sure the tip is inserted properly. Now take the other end of the mini hose and fit that into your pump. Now the fun part. You can decorate your bowl however you like and fill it up with water. Plug in the pump and give it a good test to see the water system is cycling properly. And all you gotta do is add the fishes. Look at them go! Now it's time to fill up the grow bed. Personally, I like to use pebbles. Now select which seeds you want to plant. You can either carpet bomb the soil bed, or you can use a jiffy. Once it has expanded, just drop the seeds in. Once these bad boys are a little bigger, you can then transfer them to the grow bed. Just make sure they get sufficient sunlight and your plant shall grow. It's good to switch off the pump when you go to bed and switch it on when you wake up to help save your electricity bill. Here is a ridiculously long list of all the different plants you can grow. Well, before you go off on your planting adventures, let me give you a few pointers. If the water in the tank becomes murky, just empty out the dirty water and replace with clean H2O. If the pipe gets clogged, you will need a special piece of equipment, the chopstick. Just stick it through and hi-ya! If your pump gets too battered, just call us and you can make an order for a replacement. Or we can close our eyes and you can go and buy your own pump. So there you go. Now you know everything you need to know to become a cool city farmer just like the Pop here. So go forth and plant your seeds and reap the fruits of your labor. Auga! In the meantime, please do visit us at Pop Tiny Asia via the Facebook.
I am hooked
So
because of that voice
cute.
and the video. Yasmin, thank you for joining us yet again on VBuzz. And
Yes.
Shanaz, welcome to VBuzz. This is your first time. Both of you, fantastic job. Thank you so much for joining us, by the way.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming. Now tell us, first off, what is Pop Tani?
Okay, Pop Tani is a company that we set up, and the vision that we have is to put a farm in every house.
Okay.
You know, right now,
Sounds so simple.
yeah, sounds so simple. You know, Bill Gates, desktop in every home. I think we can do it too.
That's fantastic. But, you know, before we can actually get into the nitty-gritty of the entire project, how did y'all two meet and how did this idea come about? There must have been like a circumference or something must have happened there.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yes.
Well, we've been friends for a while. But it was 5 years ago when I was introduced to this whole idea of aquaponics.
Okay.
A friend of mine came back from Australia and said it's a big thing there because in Australia farming is very they have to conserve water, especially if they are in the middle part of Australia where water is not so easy. So they introduced aquaponics into their system so that they can recycle back the water that they're using in their farming.
Right.
So he came back from Australia and said, hey, let's build an aquaponics unit in our house.
Right.
So 5 years ago, I ordered fiberglass tanks and put it in front of my house. And every single day, my wife was going, get that thing off my garden. It's ugly.
She sounds like a really fierce person, by the way.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is.
But it's still there until
Yeah,
today.
it was functioning. And
It's
we
still
had
there.
good kangkong, bayam, and tilapia that we were growing. And my kids were having so much fun with it. But it was just that it wasn't so good looking.
Yeah.
Right.
So what's the difference then between aquaponics and hydroponics?
Okay, the difference is in aquaponics, the water is recycled back into the system,
Okay.
whereas hydroponics, it flows, you know, back into the either river or sewage areas or whatever.
Right. Okay.
So in our system is 100% organic because we're actually using fertilizer that's coming out from the fish
Yeah.
to supplement the plants, and the plants and the soil kind of refreshes the water back for the fish.
Right.
So it's a beautiful system.
So there is a cycle basically where everything is done by itself. But the thing is, you mentioned your house and
Yeah.
your wife wasn't exactly happy with. In
Yeah.
terms of space and requirements to execute this project, what are we looking at?
All right.
Yeah.
So when Pop Tani started, I just had one thing in my mind. It has to be good looking enough for people to have it in their homes.
Okay.
Based on my wife's feedback, right?
That's important.
Yeah. So we then started coming up with kits that will be sufficient in your home. Let's say if you have an apartment and you don't have much space, we have an indoor unit. Let's say you have a balcony that you don't know what to use with it. We have a 4-feet unit that fits in your balcony. Or you have a porch, then
Yeah.
we have a 6-feet, 7-feet unit
Right.
that can fit into your porch or your garden. We also customize for people's ponds and also their
Yeah.
you know, koi ponds that they have in their homes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So all this came about because we wanted it to look good so that it's part of a feature in someone's home, especially in the city.
So it's accepted.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you have in your home? Yes.
I have a little gumball series, which is our first prototype, which sits indoor.
Right.
My kids love tinkering with it. I think it's also very therapeutic to a certain extent to hear the flow of water and to see simple herbs growing in it.
Yeah. And did it look exactly like the one in the video with fish at the bottom? And
Yep.
Yes,
That's so
It looks
cool.
exactly like that, and it comes in 6 colors.
Yep. Yep.
That was our first
Awesome.
prototype, which we launched last year
Okay.
to kind of validate and see whether is urban farming something that is digestible by the general public.
Yeah.
And of course, we're talking about trying to change the behavior and mindsets of urban population, because most of us, if we need food, we just either go drive-through or we go to a supermarket and get
Right.
everything we need.
Yeah.
And we've kind of lost this skill of growing our own food basically at home.
Yeah.
So our vision is actually just trying to get urbanites more positive about urban farming, making it look easier,
Yeah.
making it look cool.
Yeah.
Obviously, design plays a big component to it. And I also like to add that aquaponics is actually an open source concept. Anyone can actually do aquaponics.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is sexify it a little bit more so that urbanites would thirst for this kind of knowledge and start growing something.
I like that word,
So interesting.
sexify.
Yeah, and speaking about urbanites and learning more, stick around. We'll take a quick commercial break. And when we return, you will learn more and so much more right after this break.